Totally. So I alluded to those second round wide receivers, and the one that I talked about that is probably going to play X receiver and has issues with separating is Keon Coleman. He was drafted with that 33rd pick that the Bills traded back with the Carolina Panthers for. Your boy went a few picks later. I believe it was at 34. That was Lad McConkey, the pick that the
Yep.
Patriots traded. Then Jalen Polk went with that 37th pick. We've kind of covered him a little bit with the Drake May stuff. And then Adonai Mitchell goes in the middle of the second to the Colts, who are absolutely thrilled to get him there. So why don't you give a rank on these guys, Wiz? Coleman, McConkey, Polk, A.D. Mitchell.
Coleman, McConkey, Polk, A.D. Mitchell. So I've definitely got Lad one out of this group, no doubt about it. I think Lad's going to smash in his landing spot with the Chargers and Herbert. This next group is really tough for me. I think just given kind of what I don't like about Coleman and Adonai, I think I might go Polk 2 here. And then I hate this decision, but I guess I'll go Coleman 3 and I'll go Adonai 4. That's just kind of how I see it right now. I've got some volume concerns for Adonai. I think he's probably better from a real life perspective for them taking the top off right now than necessarily from a fantasy perspective. And Coleman, I think if anything, they're going to try and force the issue with him a little bit so that maybe that's why he does get some volume. I don't know how efficient he's going to be on it. You alluded to the X receiver piece, but that's probably how I rank him right now. Trav, what about you?
I think I might differ just a little bit. I have McConkey first, like you. Then I
Yep.
would have Coleman over Polk by just a hair because
Mm-hmm.
of the expected volume, because of the quarterback play with Josh Allen. But I'm not like super firm on that necessarily, right? Because I like the skill set for Polk better, but it's more the compiler of volume that makes Keon go ahead of him because the Bills
That's
are in
fair.
dire need of that big bodied wide receiver. And we
That's
heard
fair.
their coach say as much, like he's going to be involved right away. But definite concerns, man. Like he does not separate, does not get much for yards after the catch. And he's now with a quarterback who long has had a perception of having a bit of a wild man's arm.
Yep.
Stefon Diggs was kind of the perfect storm for him because Stefon Diggs knows nothing but 3 yards of separation. And
Yeah.
that was good for Josh Allen because he could just drop it in this monstrous bucket and Stefon Diggs was going to go get it. So I think that's the biggest concern for sure about Keon Coleman. I'm still kind of okay with him in the middle of that second round because of the volume. And if there is a hit and if he does turn some things around, it's going to be a really nice hit. Wiz, but I hear a lot of people talking about him potentially moving into the slot. And I don't know, like, I don't know if the Bills are in a position to do that, A. And then B, you look at some of the stats. Like last season from the slot, he had 3.5 yards after the catch per reception, 1.58 yards per route run. Wasn't great. And that was the only season where he had more than 20% slot snaps in college.
Okay.
So, and I think he was at 29 point something last season with Florida State. So I pulled from that. But yeah, like I said, range of outcomes is wide with Keon Coleman. And I think if you take him, you're just going to have to live or die with whatever he does for you because it's going to be a world where he hits and you don't want to sell him or he misses and you're not going to be able to sell him for a bag of pucks. So
Yeah.
tough one. I think the
Yeah.
path to volume is all we really care about for Keon.
Yeah, I think you're right, Trav. I think there's probably going to be some efficiency issues if they do kind of stick him on the outside and try to do that X roll outside for him there. Is probably going to have some boom plays that are going to give people a look into that upside that he does have. But we've heard people like Harmon kind of harp on it a little bit. Is that this guy seems relegated or would be best successful in that big slot role, and it just doesn't seem like that's in their plans. So it's push comes to shove, we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. Push will definitely come to shove. Lad McConkey went to the Chargers. They exiled all of their pass catchers before the season. Quentin
Yeah.
Johnson, or the corpse of, is still there on the depth chart. Canadian Josh Palmer is there, and while he hasn't
He's
had like
Canadian.
yeah, he's Canadian. Yeah,
I
while
didn't
he
know that.
hasn't had mega returns, I still like the player, and I think he's a guy who can play on the outside. But I don't have the illusion that he's playing over Lad or probably over
Yeah.
Quentin Johnston either. Although he played over QJ last year for quite a run, so I don't think Jim Harbaugh would be hesitant to kind of pull the plug on QJ if he had to. I think everything that you think, Wiz. I think this is good. He instantly goes in there. He's their most talented wide receiver for sure,
For sure.
and he should be their best producing wide receiver. One thing that gives me pause a little bit, and it's not even like much pause, it's more of just like a blip, is that we talked to Scott Barrett last week, and I mentioned that Ladd does play outside and inside. And Scott kind of pushed back in saying that he thinks he probably definitely just profiles better as a wide receiver in the slot from the NFL perspective. My thing with the Chargers is with the amount that they want to run, I feel like they're going to be on a lot of heavy sets. And I just wonder in those one wide receiver sets, is he going to be that one wide receiver? You know what I mean? What does
That's
that
fair.
look like? Is he going to be running on the outside more than we expected because they don't have as many wide receivers on the field? And then from an NFL level, how does he win from the outside versus in the slot? So that's maybe my only little blip on that Ladd McConkey radar. And some of it maybe just kind of like prepping myself just in case it doesn't smash, that I kind of like have a little fallback to say, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. But yeah, I think like it's all looking really good for Ladd in Los Angeles, because I don't think Quentin Johnson's going to get resurrected. As much as I love Josh Palmer, I don't think he is going to put much dent in what Ladder should do.
No, man, I think look, he's going to be Herbert's wide receiver one, probably, target 1A there. And I think there's a very realistic scenario here where he competes like I've been critical of Justin Herbert's dynasty value just from I'm worried about the overall volume, and as well as if there's any sort of volume hit, he's really going to have to increase his like touchdown ratio. And with the group of pass catchers there right now, I worry about that. But at the same time, they have such a lack of depth there or talent at the pass catching position where Ladd's going to get enough no matter what. I would not be surprised if he challenges Malik Neighbors from a target perspective around 120. And I think he's easy wide receiver 3 in this rookie season amongst the wide receivers. So
yeah, for sure. I would have to mull between him and Worthy and maybe a little bit of Brian Thomas Jr., but probably him and Worthy maybe. But it is definitely close. And it'll be interesting to see how that Chargers offense just looks overall, right? Because for me, when I was doing my dynasty rankings for quarterbacks, Ladd McConkey is the reason where I didn't automatically just move Justin Herbert down, kind of past a couple of those rookies, right? But before that, I was prepared for Justin Herbert to be like outside of the top 12 potentially with what that offense is putting out there from a pass catching perspective. So big boost from Ladd. And then AD, like I don't think we need to spend too much time because there is like a super void in target share for him. We're going to have to see him go in there, show high effort, which has been an issue for Adonai Mitchell, to be able to come in here and command some of those targets with these guys that they've got in there. So I think we're kind of waiting and seeing on AD. If I take a peek at where he was taken in those drafts, just to give everybody a bit of a gauge on the
I think
value.
one of the things, while you're doing that, one of the
Yeah.
things that's important to note here is that the Colts were pretty effusive of their praise for him, right? I think Ballard went on a nice little tirade as far as, the media tearing this kid down and everything like that. So I will say it certainly seems like, they do like what he's potentially able to bring to the table there. But like when you've got Michael Pittman, I think Josh Downs is still going to play like a role there. You've got Jonathan Taylor, you've got, a running quarterback in Anthony Richardson, who, maybe they tone some of that down this year to try and keep him on the field a bit more. But yeah, I think for me, it's a volume question for AD at this point.
Yeah, and seeing 206 and 207 is where he went in those drafts. I might look elsewhere at that price if we're being completely honest. But I think what Chris Ballard said in that interview was, "Look, guys, I'm really sorry about all my swearing, except I'm not. Except
and
you,
then just
I
continued.
am." Yeah, and then he just kept going. It was awesome.
He goes, "I'm sorry about all the swearing, but this is just fucking ridiculous."
Yeah. It was awesome. That was awesome. I love that when coaches just go off the deep end, because we all fucking do it sometimes. And so for me, like, fly off the deep end, buddy.
I gotta say, man, I like Ballard a lot.
I like that too. Like I like when a guy goes to bat for players, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Talked about Xavier Legette in Carolina, and Carolina came back and they drafted Jonathan Brooks with the 46th pick, jumped ahead of the Dallas Cowboys, who Jerry Jones was not quiet about the fact that he wanted Jonathan Brooks. I think he said, in all of my 30 years doing this, he was the best interview I've ever had at a pre-draft press conference. And then Stephen Jones like nudges him and says, hey, dude, why don't you give him the whole draft board?
Yeah.
Oh, suck it, Dallas. So yeah, I was kind of happy about that, even though it's kind of a worse landing spot. I will say that moves into Carolina that has more competition for him in Miles Sanders and Chuba Hubbard, also a Canadian.
Interesting.
Yeah, Chuba. He's from Alberta. We interviewed him on the True North Fantasy Football podcast a couple years back
That's
as well.
awesome. Fun
DAZN,
nugget.
yeah, DAZN actually reached out to us through emailing our website, and I thought it was fake. So I'm like, okay, well, let's see if this is a fake scammer. And I like email him back, and I'm like, holy shit, boys, this is real. And we
That's too funny.
interviewed Chuba Hubbard. So that is a fun little factoid. Go back to the True North Fantasy Football YouTube channel to check that out. But looks like Chuba's tenure as maybe the 1B or a piece of a tandem might be coming to an end. I think Jonathon Brooks is easily the cream of this crop in Carolina. And I really kind of like this landing spot with Dave Canales, right? We saw what he did with Rachaad White in Tampa
Yep.
Bay. I think most importantly, we saw his willingness to use Rachaad White as a bell cow. Rashad Bell among running backs last season was top 10 in snap share and carry share, and he had the 12th highest running back target share as well from looking at the bell cow report via our friends, the Fantasy Points data suite. And he finished as the running back 4 for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if there is any of that connotation surrounding Jonathon Brooks, Wiz, I want all of it. Of course, the ACL injury is kind of the elephant in his room, but let me know what you think about maybe the short term and then the long term for Jonathon Brooks.
So the long term, I know it's not the Dallas landing spot that you alluded to, but I do think this is a pretty damn good landing spot for Jonathon Brooks long term. I think at worst you're probably seeing Miles Sanders out at the probably next year. If you look at his dead cap hit next year, it's just $2.9 million. A little bit heftier this year at 10.4. I think I've already seen some discussions as far as is he out the door even as soon as this offseason? Could he be an option for somebody like Dallas if he, does get out the door? That would be really interesting. But look, I think Chuba performed admirably during his time there last year. But I think to your point, what we saw out of Rachaad White in Tampa Bay with Dave Canales last year shows that he is willing to have that bell cow. And you've seen the way Jonathon Brooks can contribute in both the run game and the pass game. Pretty smooth receiver, solid pass blocker. So it's not like he should have any issue staying on the field, especially, you want to have a really good pass blocking back when you've got somebody like Bryce Young there. So look, I think he's 20 years old. I think you alluded to the ACL as well, Trav. Temper expectations in the beginning. This is absolutely his backfield by the end of the year, and this is firmly his backfield going forward. He's a guy that I think I have right now. Where am I looking here? So if I look at my dynasty ranks, I've got him as high as RB12.
Oh man, that is steamy. Man, running back 12. I got him at running back
Yeah.
18. So I think that's still like pretty
Okay.
high on him, right? And I love the fact that you're taking that stance on Jonathon Brooks because I think he does have that profile as a tackle breaker, somebody who can take on some workload, make guys miss. Really excited to see him come back and be something in the league. I think it might be that gradual incline, of course, with the injury, but
Sure.
I think you might be able to see a little dip on Jonathon Brooks. We're still seeing him go at the top of second rounds because of that landing spot and the outlook that he will be the running back 1. But yeah, I think it's going to be really nice for Jonathon Brooks with Dave Canales in that offense. The one thing that I do want to see is like, how does that ACL recover and what does that do to his
Yeah.
potential to break away from NFL cornerbacks and safeties if he's making some big runs? I think some of those questions were in place before the injury a little bit, but I think now they're maybe a little bit more prevalent. But I think with the fact that the NFL was this high on him and that Dave Canales went and wanted to trade up ahead of the Dallas Cowboys, that's nothing but good signs
No,
for
I think
Jonathon Brooks.
your point, Trav, right? Like 46 is legit draft capital for running backs. And especially for a running back coming off an ACL, like that's telling me that he might have even gone a little bit higher. So in this day and age, obviously last year you kind of had the anomaly with Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs kind of going in that like top half of that first there, but 46 in this day and age in the NFL, it's legit draft capital for him.
Yeah, well, we were saying, I think last week or the week before, that we didn't think we were going to see any running backs go in that top 50, and we
Yep.
did.